So, hello everyone. Hope you are doing great and welcome to our Digital Lending Know Your Customer webinar provided by us, ITSCREDIT and Mitek Systems. My name is Sofia Augusto. I'm ITSCREDIT's Marketing Manager and I'll be your host for today's webinar. First of all, welcome and thank you for taking your time for being here today. We'll be running a live questions and answers session at the end of the webinar, so if you have any questions, just pop them in there. We'll choose between 3 to 5 to answer. If you miss anything, don't worry, we'll be sending around the recording when it's available. So today, you'll hear from Marco Souza, our credit specialist, and Joel Blumendahl, Mitek Systems Head of Strategy. Our webinar will start with a contextualization about the problem we are trying to solve, which is the traditional credit and the bureaucratic process associated to it. So we'll present a solution for this problem, which is the digital lending. And this is a credit process which, in a scenario where the bank wants to provide credit to a non-customer, so put it available to everyone on the website, for example, he needs the Know Your Customer part, the identity document and biometric verification, which will be explained by our partner, Mitek. In the end, we'll be running a live demo, and afterwards you can pop out your questions. So, leave you now with Marco, our credit specialist. He has more than 13 years of working experience in multiple industries at an international level, and on the last 5 years has been working on the credit area. So, Marco, up to you now.
Thank you very much, Sophia, and obviously welcome to everyone to this webinar. So about the problem. So everyone knows that we are just facing a huge problem in terms of our physical need, for example, in terms of going to a bank. And obviously there are huge differences between traditional money lending or digital solution. Just to have an idea, just a few years ago, just to have a duly certified document in a financial institution would take around 3 or 4 days just to certify a certain document like a citizen's card or a proof of income. And for example, just to complete a credit process would take around 1 month. So right now, or the last years, we are just facing a huge changing in terms of banking services. So my opinion, and I guess that the industry opinion, is that the internet, it was a completely game changer because now it's completely possible just to manage our financial life and obviously just apply for a credit by an online solution. So I think that nowadays we are just overcoming the problem that we had before. Next slide, please, Sophia. Next slide. Okay. So we have here some market key drivers in terms of data, just to have an idea about our reality and what our customers, what the banking customers are thinking about. So, for example, at the top, we are seeing just the customer perspective about their primary bank and about the sentence that says that they think that has a narrow range of products and services and does not exactly match their needs or preferences, or it's not well integrated with other platforms or apps that they use daily. So, and if you see in terms of their satisfaction about the banking services, 16% says that they are not satisfied. And if we go deeper, we can see that 26% of new age customers, we are talking about millennials, for example, the people that were born between the 80s and the 90s, they are not satisfied at all with their banking services. And if you see next, almost half of new age customers are willing just to switch their banking accounts in the next year. Going below, we see that why or what are the top reasons because the customers are adopting different type of banking services, different from the traditional players. Actually, we are just talking about the challenger banks, for example. For example, the key reasons, the top reasons, the biggest one is about the costs. So 70% says that they are attracted by low-cost offerings. So the price matters in the banking systems, and it's really, but really important for the new age customers. Then going next, 68% they seek ease of use. So nowadays it's really important just to have a really fast and easy app or services that they can just complete their operations in a really easy way. Then more than half want a faster service, obviously. 39% they pursue better features, and obviously we are just talking now about customization, personalized products, 39%. Going next, slide please. The solution. So we have here a solution that is the digital lending. We have here a definition, a robust definition that was provided by R. Morgan from ABI Banking Journal in 2017, that R. Morgan just told us, or just he says, or he thinks that digital lending is the technology that kickstarted the fintech movement and is still the most prominent example in the media. It says also that as consumers and businesses have moved more activities online, and they have created an unprecedented amount of data. Online learners have leveraged this data to make underwriting decisions, creating computer programs that can automate loan originations without the need for a customers to ever set a foot in a branch. So I guess that nowadays it's really important that we just talking about this the final part, that just to automate, just to complete credit operation without the need for a customer just to ever set a foot in a branch. Because right now we are just facing a huge crisis, this virus, COVID-19, that it's not just normal, it's not so easy to go to a branch just to complete a credit operation or just to accede to the banking services. So it's really important nowadays just the use of digital solutions just to overcome this barrier, for example, that we are just seeing today. Next slide, please, Sophia. So our approach, we have our own approach in terms of digital lending. Our approach is about 7 steps. So it's a workflow that starts from the simulation until the money disbursement, just passing through the application, the scoring. Obviously, this scoring could be for individuals or for corporate. Obviously, we're just talking about scoring models and rating models. Then we have the decision step that could be completely manual or could be automatic. Collaterals, if applicable, obviously it depends what product we are just talking for. Contracting, and the final moment, money disbursement in customer's account. So this is our workflow that just covers all credit life cycle in terms of credit operations. Obviously, sometimes there is some differences, but the great majority of the credit operations are with this workflow. We use our omnichannel digital lending platform that just could be completely applicable to different type of ways just to communicate with the customers. That could be with internet banking, with apps, with partners and contact centers or wherever. Next slide, please, Sophia. So a video. So now we are just seeing the digital lending scenarios that we perform. We have 3 types of completely different digital lending scenarios. We have the first one for non-customers, that the whole lending process is completely digital from the beginning until the end. for example, let's talk from the simulation until the money disbursement, it will be the one that will show by a live demo. Then we have next one, customers with pre-approval, that is just valid for a certain type of customers with a certain risk profile. And then we have the customers without pre-approval that we just implement the scoring decision tree with online environment. So next slide, please. So we have here the flow, the workflow for a non-customer scenarios that we will perform next. So as I said before, we have the first step, the simulation, that all the credits just starts with the simulation. Then we have the second step, the upload of personal data, that we will just see a complete integration with the Mitek solution in terms of identity verification. Then we have the third step, upload of bank information, completely integrated with core banking systems and credit bureaus, for example. And the last moment, the decision and the signature just to complete the credit operations.
So this Know Your Customer part will now be explained by Joe Blumendahl, Mitek Systems Head of Strategy. Joe, back to you.
Hi there, Sophia. Marco, sorry, I was on mute.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having us on your webinar today. I'm coming from a very, very sunny Netherlands. We're not so used to that, so it's warm here. Thanks, Marco. So in the circumstances that you would indeed have a client that is a non-customer, as you just said, it is obviously in this world of uncertainty really important that you do understand who you are going to deal with. But as Marco also pointed out, in a completely digital world, that's hard if you don't have branches or anywhere where you could physically interact and do a face-to-face KYC, know your customer check. So before we dive into how we do that together with ITSCREDIT, I thought it would be useful if we could take a helicopter view of the world and look at a couple of trends. We can go to the next slide, Sophia, if you want to understand where some of this uncertainty is coming from and why it's really important to choose wisely if you're looking for a vendor that will provide your KYC solution. The number one trend we're seeing that is different than 3, 4, 5 years ago is that the consumers, I mean, that's you and I, are worried about the security of their identity in this increasingly digital world. So there's this awareness that is coming up. People understand that they're sharing data that then could be misused. People are also reading news in the papers about data breaches. So the consumer is worried and expects that anybody that they interact with takes a bit of notice and takes care of their data. The second big one is fraud is rising quite dramatically, to be honest, and the tactics are also changing. So you see fewer fraud instances, but bigger numbers. And I think that's something that has been accelerated and amplified, if you will, by the COVID problem that we're in, like Marco just talked about as well. So that's just going to keep going on, and we'll talk about some details in a minute. And then the third one is actually the solution that we don't have. There is no sort of geo-agnostic and interoperable fraud mitigation solution. There's a patchwork of stuff around Europe, let's say Europe, but there's no real one identity that I can now easily go and onboard myself with one token, and then whoever I want to interact with knows who I am. Jumping to the next slide, we show you some details around this sort of feeling around uncertainty for the consumers. We did a survey before COVID hit Europe so badly. So this is probably, I think, 8, 9 months ago. And you can see here in this very simple graph that 96% of consumers are concerned about the possibility of having their PII, personal information, stolen, by using their digital identity. So that's not a small number. And then we move to the next slide, putting that into context. Consumers also say that only 25% of them also say that they don't fully understand digital identity. You should download the report if you ever have time, because you can see a complete breakdown of what people think that identity is. And they're quite far off in some cases, but 65%, and again, under the circumstances we're in now, that number is going to be much higher because we're online all the time for everything at the moment. People report using their digital identities all the time. So there's on one hand uncertainty around it, and on the other hand, this increase of use of digital identity and digital credentials. And the next slide gives us some insight into how big the fraud problem was. The number 2 on the first slide I showed you, some numbers here on the left. There was an interesting report where we could see that account takeover fraud rose by 70% in sort of 12, 18 months. And that's really is a big number. Account takeover fraud typically is done with social engineering. So I'll call somebody and then I'll talk them into sharing a credential that will give me access to their funds somehow. Digital and online payment fraud doubled from 2018 to 19. And new account fraud, very much done with synthetic identities. And we see a lot of that happening in North America now. And no doubt that will blow over the ocean our way sometime soon, is rising as well. So to summarize this, the pressure on the system of fraud is rising very quickly in all sorts of different directions. So if you think about having a solution that would overcome some of these problems, you need a specialist. And ultimately, there are different types of providers out there, but Mitek has chosen to be a specialist in document verification and face biometrics, because we believe that if you have a full chain of a KYC and AML solution, anti-money laundering solution, any weak link in the chain will definitely cause all sorts of reputational damage, fraud on the back end, and more uncertainty with the consumers. So it's super important to understand how to verify the documents that are presented and are necessary to get a loan in the flow that we just saw, instead of having a much broader solution that has weak links somewhere in there. So what does it look like? How do we do that? And if we move on to the next slide, like I said, there's 2 things that you need to do. Because we don't have centralized databases or reliable bureau data anymore, we need to rely, and also because of legislation, obviously, we need to rely on using identity documents in many cases, but in a digital context. So you need to bridge the gap from a physical document to a digital version that then has to be verified somehow. But you also need to know that the person, the actual rightful owner of the document, uploads their own document. And Mitek in that case uses face biometrics, which is available through the ITSCREDIT platform too. And moving to the next slide, zooming in on how the identity document verification works, there's a couple of things that I want to share, and we can skip this slide, Sophia. Most of what we do is based on technology. So Mitek's a technology company. We use artificial intelligence that has machine learning on top of it to verify the identity document, which means first the document will come into us once the consumer has uploaded it. We then classify it so that we know that it's not a picture of a cat or something. We then start extracting the data, and then all of that is passed back into the system for a frictionless experience for the consumer. But we also need to verify, and the machines are good at verifying to a certain extent. It all depends on the quality of the image, type of document. So in some scenarios, and that's the point that is good to understand, in some scenarios, the machines just can't verify an identity document to the level of assurance that is necessary for a large loan, for instance. And that's where, on the next slide, we can see that we have agents. We employ agents. They are document experts who will then take over, or basically work together with the artificial intelligence to start verifying the identity documents. And the agents can do different things. They can correct an OCR error, which still can happen today. but they also very deeply can zoom into the document and look at security features and then determine if they are correct. These are very highly trained people, both internally and externally trained people that Mitek has available 24/7. And now I can hear people think, well, in a digital channel, why would I want a person verify the identity document? Sounds like it might take a long time, but you really are talking sort of 120 seconds, 150 seconds for a level of assurance that makes a lot of sense in the scenarios we're talking about today. Next slide, please, Sophia. So wrapping up what we were just talking about, the identity document verification, a lot of what we do is technology that'll take you to a very high level of security, but also more importantly, a very smooth and frictionless experience for the end user, because they don't want to be sitting around waiting for identity verification to be done. But to make sure that you do hit the 9.999 mark on identity assurance, we employ the agent as well, so that we can verify any and all documents to the level that you need. Next slide. As we said before, once we've verified the identity document, we definitely need to determine that Joe actually is uploading his own document. And we use face biometrics, like you just saw on the next slide that is coming up now. And using face biometrics leans on two key elements that are important to have in the system. One is obviously the actual comparison. So we extract the photo of the person from their identity document, let's say a passport, and then the person takes the selfie, and those two images have to be compared. But equally as important is understanding that that person was live in the process, so that I hadn't stolen somebody's Facebook or LinkedIn image and I'm holding that up to the camera instead of doing this live. And with Mitek, the liveness detection is very sophisticated. We've done a recent upgrade of the whole system, and now we're not relying on just active for the people in the know out there, just active verification of liveness. We're also doing a lot of passive checks on the background to keep the fraudsters away from us. The face comparison is important because it's quite difficult to compare those two images, and in the next slide you'll see how difficult it sometimes can be. This is a sample that we've taken for the simple reason that there's so many images available of the British Queen, for those of you who've recognized her by now. And you can see that this demonstrates how our technology is reliable across a variety of variables. Really looking at her age, on the left-hand side, you can see that the Queen's 20. On the right-hand side, she's 90 already. But also you can see that there are images that are black and white, very low on color, and the angle of the face is a little bit different in each picture. Whatever happens, you can see the match threshold is the red dotted line at the below. Anything above that is a match, and the blue is the result from Mitek Systems, and we are able to match her in each case. So this gives you a good idea of how reliable the system is. And also remember that this is done in a split second. So this is completely automated. These days, no humans necessary to compare these two images. And that takes us to the last slide I have here, which I definitely won't read out to you because you might fall asleep. But if you'd like to know more about Mitek, please jump onto our website. You can find me personally on LinkedIn. There's a lot of information out there. Thank you very much, and I'm going to pass you back to Marco.
Thank you very much, Joe. So now I will perform a live demo with ITSCREDIT technology and Mitek technology. So I will perform completely digital credit operations. So I will just share my screen. I will perform a credit. So right now you are seeing my mobile phone with all my apps, all my things. So now I will just accede to ITSCREDIT app, just perform a credit operation. So right now I'm in my bank account. I have here some items just to apply if I want in terms of credit. For example, I have a house, a car, or holidays. For example, I can, for example, just choose to buy a car. We have here some images about this car, Audi A3, have some features about this car, location, and some more information about this car. So let's calculate, let's simulate this credit operation. So we have here the amount, which amount we want just to borrow from the bank. We can just slide bar to the left or to the right just to choose the amount. Then we can just choose the turn to, how many months. Then we can just click here, apply. Then we have here a resume of this credit operation with the credit amount, monthly value, all the commissions, the rates. Then we continue. We have here the citizen card. So let's upload my identification. So I have to mention that for privacy reasons, I will use a dummy entity and I will not film the moment before I take the selfie. So let's just upload my citizen card. Have here, then the front and now the back. Now, next step, continue. Let's take a selfie too. Confirm. Now we have to upload the proof of income to the image, then this one too. Then we continue. Then we must read all legal aspect just to perform this credit operation. Then we continue. I have here a resume of this credit operation, then we accept. Then we must read again and scroll down all the information because we must read just to complete this operation. Confirm, then sign the contracts, SMS notification, then we agree. We receive the token, then we verify, and we have concluded the credit operation in just a few seconds. So I'll just pass word to you, Sophia.
Thank you, Marco. You can see the credit he just asked for in the active loans afterwards in the app. And let's go back to our presentation. Okay, so sorry, I was on mute. I was saying that saying the advantages of our credit platform. It has already proven capable of providing a considerable increase in leads, an increase in the volume of loans and efficiency, and at the same time, there were decreases in the waiting time for credit approval, a decrease in operating costs, and a reduction in the time taken to launch new products. By making digital and automating all the lending processes, our customers can establish a relationship that is much simpler and more immediate, meeting their customers' expectations. And this is for us a win-win scenario. So, if you have any questions, just pop them in on the chat and we'll choose between 3 to 5 to answer. Feel free to do it. Joe and Marco, if you want to answer any of the questions, just unmute yourselves and answer the questions. Okay, so Marco, I think this one is for you. What makes this an omni-channel digital lending platform?
Thank you very much for your question, Sophia. In terms of omni-channel platform, we are talking about the platform that is available in terms of bank internet, in terms of app, in terms of being applicable, for example, in terms of dealers portal, in partners, and obviously in branches of a bank. So a financial institution being or having an omni-channel platform is capable just to communicate in different ways with their customers. Internet banking, with apps from mobile banking, with partners via portal, from a front office portal too. So that's the reason because we call it omni-channel, multi-channel lending platform.
Okay, Pedro, I hope this answers your question. So afterwards, we have a question of Valenti. He asks to Marco, how do you expect that COVID-19 will influence the use of e-lending solutions like ours, like ITSCREDIT? And afterwards, for Joe, he asks how it will affect digital transactions from a fraud perspective. So maybe, Marco, if you want to start.
Okay, in terms of integration, in terms of our completely digital solution, we have to integrate with different type of technology solutions. Obviously, we integrate with core banking systems, with central banks, and also just integrating with the core banking systems. We can just have the general data from the customers, the financial position, the banking responsibilities with the central banks, and obviously we integrate with the credit bureaus too, and know your customer solutions. And sometimes we have to integrate with other third-party systems like services, ETL, batch file, data mart, and so on. So actually it depends the complexity of the credit operations. And after just studying the credit operation, we will see what kind of integrations we will need just to perform a completely digital credit operation.
Okay, so Joe, for Mitek, how the COVID-19 situation will affect digital transactions from a fraud perspective?
Sorry, struggling to get off mute again. So yeah, I was listening to Marco. I think in general, not just for Mitek, the risk of fraud will continue to increase for the simple reason that we're going to be doing more of what we do digitally, and there's going to be more people that are maybe not so used to doing it digitally, going online to do shopping, they need a loan for medical assistance or just for fun maybe as well. And unfortunately, the bad guys know about this too, so they'll find their way to those people that are less tech savvy and trying to defraud them. So I think the transactions are at risk, and I think it's really important that services like we have, like ITSCREDIT has, use safe ways of verifying identity and transporting that information.
Thank you, Joe. I hope your question was answered, Valentin. Afterwards, here, Katia and Lenovo, I think this is the name of the computer, but I can answer to both of your questions. We are talking and we are demonstrating today in this webinar a non-customer scenario, which means that we have the same process for people who are customers of the bank, and if in that case we use banks KYC instead of asking clients information indeed. But today in this webinar we are talking about customers, potential customers that banks don't know that their information. And this is only a simulation, a demo. So afterwards we can ask and you can integrate all the information that the banks want in our app, the mobile phone, the email, the fiscal number. We can include everything. This is just a demo to show you how we do this process. And Afterwards, I think this is for Marco. For loan operations and similar, like investments customers, even the millennials still prefer to simulate on the app, but the final signature in the branch. How can the banks be effective, costs, customer satisfaction, dealing with this reality? Marco.
Well, I can answer as a fintech company, not as a bank, because we are not a bank. So obviously, in terms of our platform, we are capable just perform all the credit process completely digital. But for example, if a financial institution, a bank, wants that the final moment, the signature, the contracting phase, wants face-to-face at the branch, we can just perform this step in terms of completing a credit operation. In terms of costs, I think that obviously in terms of costs, it's better just to complete the credit operation in a completely digital way because like we saw before, we can just apply for a credit operation in just a few seconds. So it's much better because it's faster, it's more intuitive, it's more attractive. So just imagine today that, for example, now or currently, the great majority of the people are just working from home, and with a completely digital credit operation, you can perform a credit, or you can just apply for a credit from your home. So I think, in terms of costs, it's much better for a bank, for a financial institution. But obviously, in terms of being capable or not, we can just perform all credit life cycle completely digital. And for example, in the final moment, in the signature, in the final signature, it could be face-to-face at the branch. So it depends, but in terms of cost, I think, and obviously being completely digital process, it just increases the customer satisfaction, I think.
So I hope Marco answered your questions. If there's not any more, I just want to say that if your question was not answered, if you are interested in finding out how ITSCREDIT or Mitek can help you, or if you would like to book a demo, or if you just want to talk with us, please do not hesitate to contact us. The contacts are here, ITSCREDIT and Mitek. You also can find our LinkedIn, social media, etc. on the website. And thank you very much. Stay safe and hope to see you soon. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.